Lung Yuyang chapter for bathing in the divine blessing. More and more redrobed people appeared in the plaza. Every 3 steps, they bowed. Each 9 steps, they kowtowed. They were muttering some kind of strange scripture. A strange air filled heaven and earth. Lung Yuyang and the others' nerves were stretched taut. And it was like some kind of formless energy was enveloping them. Grand corrupt God, please bestow your glory onto these children. Enlighten them on how to advance. From today onwards, they will no longer be sheep lost in the wild. An old man was kneeling in front of the statue and was also muttering a scripture. Lung Yuyang didn't know that this was a kind of ceremony. All the children were befuddled as they looked at the statue. The ceremony took a full 2 hours. And during it, none of the children dared to move. Once the ceremony was finally over, all the children were forced together. And the scripture was taught to them. Corrupt God blessing. Temper my body. Make me fearless. Make me forget myself. Make me forget the rest of the world. Everything the world has is bestowed by the God, every blade of grass, every tree, every thread, every needle. The God grace me with my body. A body to follow heaven's laws. Eliminate the weak. A battle of survival of the fittest. The weak are only born for the strong. All life struggles. No one could understand it. But they did their best to memorize it. That was because the elder had just said that this ceremony was to offer sacrifice to the corrupt God. That person would only repeat it 3 times. And if they still couldn't memorize it, it meant they didn't know how to respect the corrupt God. Those who disrespected the corrupt God would be killed. There were over 1,000 words. After only repeating it 3 times, that person began testing people one by one. If anyone said one word wrong, they would be dragged away. It was said that they would be fed to magical beasts. Thus, wails began to rise. Little Yang, did you memorize it? Asked Jiyu Nianru stealthily. Yes. Lung Yuyang nodded. It was quickly their turn. The 2 of them smoothly passed the test. After that, they were split into a group of 500 people. Since you've memorized it, from today onwards, you will no longer be orphans, but the God's children. Your parents weren't killed, they died to undertake the corrupt God's work. You can consider them heroes that died in battle. If they hadn't died, there would have been no way for you to realize what this world is. This world is emotionless, pitiless, and merciless. It is a world where the weak are only prey to the strong, and only the strong are respected. Compassion, duty, propriety, integrity, those are hypocritical shams. Power is the only thing you need. With power, you can fulfill all your desires. Without power, you'll only be able to watch as the things you cherish the most are taken away by others. As for you, you'll be able to do nothing. Starting today, you'll form groups of 10 and be thrown deep into the mountains. You'll have to survive on your own for 2 years. Wild beasts roam about in those mountains. So whether or not you can survive depends on your own abilities. That expert directly sent them off after speaking. This was Lung Yuyan's first time seeing flying magical beasts. The fortunate thing was that she was in the same group as Jiyu Nianru. In their group of 10, there were 3 girls and 7 boys. They all listened to Jiyu Nianru, working together to find a source of water, forage for food, and build a shelter. These children who had originally enjoyed their parents' love had now begun to learn how to survive on their own. Fortunately, Jiyu Nianru was extremely experienced with hunting. When the 10 of them worked together, Each day was better than the last. They began to form bonds between them, as if they were a family. In the beginning, they only dared to gather a few wild fruits. Once they found a source of water, they began building a shelter. They built traps around the shelter to prevent attacks from wild beasts. A month later, they began hunting for pheasants, rabbits, and other prey. Sometimes, they would even dare to attack wild boars. Living in that intense environment, Leng Yuyang learned many skills. Under Jiyu Nyanru's guidance, she quickly became their group's second-in-command. She was strong and agile. Their shelter was attacked several times by wild beasts. Once a fierce black bear attacked and broken their traps. Under Jiyu Nyanru and Leng Yuyang's guidance, they worked together to cut it down. The days passed one by one. They felt that these days were the happiest time of their lives after what they had experienced before. But happy days always passed by the quickest. 2 years passed in the blink of an eye. Leng Yuyang was already 5.5 years old. In this environment, she had grown a great deal. She had almost forgotten the pain of her past. But on this day, their nightmare returned. People came to bring them back. They tried to run, but they were all caught. They were brought back to the sect. After that, they were forced to consume various medicinal pills and take tests to evaluate their physical functions. The pain was enough for them to want to die. In this place, they were like animals that had to follow other people's orders. They wanted to rebel, but they didn't have the power. 3 days later, they were brought into a room. Next, someone came and called out 3 names. Once those 3 people left, they never returned. Leng Yuyang and Jiyu Nyanru went out to search only to find them in a nearby valley. They were already dead. There were hundreds of other corpses with them. They should be the people whose talent wasn't good enough. They didn't have the qualifications to be raised. So they were killed, said Jiyu Nyanru hatefully, clenching her fists. These bastards, roared one boy. They were all infuriated. These were companions they had been with for 2 years. Seeing 3 of them die, they were incomparably distressed. Scram or die. Just at this moment, a redrobed man appeared, tossing 2 more corpses onto the pile. Leng Yuyang and the others returned to their wooden room. And then, more people brought them away again. It was another round of tests. After those tests, only 5 of their 7 remained. 2 more of them died. They despaired. In front of these powerful experts, their little bit of power was insignificant. Bastards. Just wait until I get stronger. I'll definitely kill them all to get revenge. I've already remembered all their faces, said one boy through clenched teeth. The next day, the 5 of them were brought back to the plaza with hundreds of others. It was still the same group as 2 years ago, but now they numbered much less. 2 years had let them grow a great deal. They had become stronger, but the only thing in their eyes was endless hatred. They had obviously encountered the same thing as Leng Yuyang and the others. It was still the same elder that had held the ceremony back then. He smiled slightly. Now do you understand how important power is? Without power, you won't even be able to survive, let alone have freedom or dignity. However, you don't need to panic. Do you want revenge? Do you want revenge for your companions? Do you want to kill those people who were so cruel to you? Do you also want to kill me with them? That's also fine. Everyone is a follower of the corrupt God. And the corrupt God is fair. He will give all of you the chance to fulfill your wishes. The key point is whether or not you can grasp that chance. Starting today, you all have the right to cultivate. As long as you are strong enough, you can kill anyone here that you have enmity against, including myself. You are the seedlings that have been tested to have the greatest potential. But whether or not you can grow is up to yourselves. Now you have the chance to take the first step of your growth. Bathe in the corrupt god's favor. Let the divine ceremony begin. The corrupt god statue began to shake slightly, and light began to rain from the sky. Those children began to quiver as that light sprinkled upon them. The blood in their bodies began to rapidly circulate. It felt like their bodies were overflowing with energy. Corrupt God, grace me with power. I am willing to become your most loyal servant, shouted some people, their eyes red. Corrupt God, I am willing to offer up my everything to you, including my soul. Following the loud shouting of certain people, it was like the corrupt God had really heard them. The rain of light slowly condensed over them. The others saw that and followed suit. Shouts of solemn oaths rang throughout the air. Those people's voices turned hoarse, but they continued to scream. That was because they found that as they screamed, more light would gather over their bodies, and the power overflowing out of them grew even greater. Lung Yuyang watched as the people around her screamed with greater and greater fervor. She noticed that when the light landed on her body, there was some kind of power that forced it back. She was unable to absorb it. Once the divine ceremony was over, they learned that they were the disciples of the corrupt god, also known as the Corrupt Path's disciples. Their sect was called Bloodfiend Gate. Bloodfiend Gate didn't split its disciples into inner or outer disciples. Everyone was the same. They started cultivating and training together. The elders imparted the chi condensation techniques to them. Chi condensation was the first step. As for the chi sensing realm, after bathing in the corrupt god's divine grace, they had already passed that. Their cultivation speed was incredibly fast, and their foundation was extremely solid. During this time, they had plenty of food, a good dwelling, and practically anything else that they wanted. In just 1 month, Lung Yuyang had reached the 7th heaven stage of chi condensation. That was the most frightening thing about the god's blessing. Each of these people had been without the slightest foundation, but having experienced countless life and death trials, all their potential was carved out. Jiyu Nyanru was even stronger. She had already reached the 9th heaven stage. To reach the 9th heaven stage of chi condensation at just 6 years old was extremely terrifying. Once all the disciples were gathered again, they were no longer children, but cultivators. Although they were young and immature, the pain and suffering of their childhood had allowed them to mature very early. At just 6 or 7 years old, they had the same stature as someone over 10 years old. Their eyes were cold and sharp. They also had their own weapons, as well as any battle skills they wanted to cultivate. Compared to a month ago, they were like completely different people. Excellent. You should all have sensed the power of the divine blessing now. It was the corrupt god that changed your everything. Only by bathing under the light of the corrupt god can you become this world's master, becoming the master of your own fate. A month ago, I said the corrupt god would give you a chance to get revenge. That time has come. The elder pointed to a mass of people standing in the distance. They were all chi condensation experts. Do you see them? The people who captured you. The people who killed your families. They're right there. Your chance to get revenge has come. You can challenge them. It will be a fair fight. Life and death will be up to fate. It just depends on whether you have the courage, said the elder. I want to challenge you. seeing the man with the scar on his face. Killing intent erupted out of Lung Yuyang. That was precisely one of the people that had killed her parents. Even if he was burned to ash, she would still recognize that face. Lung Yuyang Chapter 5 Cruel Rules. Lung Yuyang immediately thought of how her parents had died miserably. Looking at this scar-faced man, a strange blue light appeared in her pupils. Little Yang. His cultivation base has reached the 9th heaven stage of qi condensation. You can't beat him, said Ji Yu Nianru. But Lung Yuyang had already walked out, a 2-foot-long sword in her hand. It was a specially made weapon for her age. The scar-faced man smiled slightly. His luck was excellent. Lung Yuyang had actually challenged him. According to the corrupt path's rules, these disciples would only have one chance to challenge them. As long as they passed, they would receive a large reward. But there was another rule. That was that they couldn't kill these children. However, the children challenging them didn't know about that rule. For Lung Yuyang to challenge him now meant that she couldn't challenge him again in the future. He would receive an easy reward now. The people like him were most afraid of these disciples growing up before challenging them. Then they would definitely die. Lung Yuyang unsheathed her sword. Even at such a young age, the whistling sound of her sword was so sharp. That was enough to show how strong her wrist strength was. Even some of the elders couldn't help nodding. This Lung Yuyang was so young. But she was made of good stuff. The scar-faced man snorted and raised his sword. Lung Yuyang's attack was easily blocked. In terms of power, she was unable to compete with him. Little Yang, cried Ji Yu Nianru. Lung Yuyang clenched her teeth. Blood was pouring out of her hand. But she seemed to not be able to sense it. She repeatedly slashed her sword. The corrupt experts shook their heads. Her first slash had been good. But by the third slash, she was just randomly hacking. The scar-faced man snorted. His sword danced and Lung Yuyang was forced back 3 times. Blood dripped out of the corner of her mouth. After all, she was just a child. And she was too lacking when it came to power. Furthermore, as she became furious, she even forgot to circulate her qi. Without circulating her qi, she was immediately sent flying back. A cut on her cheek. Blood slowly flowed out. She knelt there, trying to get up. But she didn't succeed. You really are too useless. I still remember that your father was that dark-skinned fellow. Correct. When he died, you retaliated and even managed to kill Li Lao-san. Over 2 years have passed. But you haven't grown at all. Don't even think about getting revenge in your life. You're fated to forever be weak. In the future, you'll only be able to crawl beneath the feet of the strong. Sneered the scar-faced man. That was their mission. They were supposed to provoke these disciples to get stronger. They wanted them to be furious. They wanted them to go crazy. Lung Yuyang was on the ground. The scar-faced man was too powerful. She felt like her body was about to collapse. Her mind entered a muddled state. She could vaguely hear Ji Yu Nianru's cries. But that voice seemed so distant. Just as Lung Yuyang was about to fall unconscious, she entered a strange space. There was a long-haired woman was in front of her. That woman was holding something in her hand. That was all Lung Yuyang could tell. She was unable to see anything else about her figure. "Who are you?" cried Lung Yuyang. This was her second time seeing this figure. "You still aren't angry enough. This way. You won't be able to obtain the power that should be yours. He is right, you really are too useless. You are unable to get revenge for your parents. They died for nothing. That woman shook her head and then disappeared. No. I will get revenge. I'll get revenge for my parents. I'm not trash. I'll get revenge. Leng Yuyang slowly raised her head. Her originally black and white eyes now twinkled with a blue light. It was a bit strange. Originally, everyone had thought that the battle was over. But Leng Yuyang suddenly crawled up. She raised her sword and walked over to the scar-faced man. Her eyes. The scar-faced man's heart shook. He suddenly recalled that when Leng Yuyang had killed Li Lao San, her eyes had also changed color. Die! Leng Yuyang's sword slashed down. What startled everyone was that this attack brought with it a whistling sound that made it seem like it was tearing apart space. That wasn't a kind of power she should possess. The scar-faced man hastily raised his sword. As a result, sparks flew. He was forced back several steps. PFFT. Just as he was knocked back, Leng Yuyang's figure appeared in front of him. With a slash of her sword, his leg was severed. What? The experts' expressions all changed. Leng Yuyang's power was extremely strange. They were unable to see through it. The scar-faced man hadn't expected a child to possess such power. Seeing another slash coming toward him, he hastily dodged. His sword was knocked out of his hand. Leng Yuyang's sword flew. The scar-faced man's other leg and arms were all cut off. He screamed. But Leng Yuyang was merciless. She thought of the love her parents had given her, and all kinds of scenes surfaced in her mind. She became more and more infuriated because these people had killed those that she loved the most. Leng Yuyang's sword repeatedly slashed down. The scar-faced man was turned into mincemeat in front of everyone's shocked gazes. Suddenly, the blue light in Leng Yuyang's eyes faded, and she collapsed limply. Jiyu Nianru hastily ran over to support her. Leng Yuyang had succeeded in getting revenge. Countless other disciples immediately challenged the ones that had harmed them. Some succeeded. Some failed. This revenge was a trial for these disciples. These were the ways the corrupt path raised its disciples. 3 days later, Leng Yuyang and Jiyu Nianru were split into a group of 500 people. They cultivated together. They received missions to hunt magical beasts. And with Leng Yuyang and Jiyu Nianru present, they never encountered any danger. 3 months later, Leng Yuyang broke through to blood condensation. At this time, they tested their spirit roots. As a result, the higher-ups were disappointed to see that her spirit root was only silver grade. But Jiyu Nianru's spirit root had reached the dark gold rank. After testing their spirit roots, they underwent an extremely cruel challenge. Their group of disciples was about to undergo a knockout competition. 2 people would fight. The winner would live, while the loser would die. When they heard of this, everyone was dumbfounded. Their opponent was specially chosen by the situation. If the 2 disciples were unable to determine a winner within an incense stick's worth of time, the elder would directly cut off both their heads. Battle isn't a game. The corrupt god does not accept blasphemy. The goal of the battle is to kill your opponent. If you're afraid of death, you'll only die faster. The corrupt god has blessed all of you so that you'll become the strongest warriors. It's not for trash afraid of dying. If your faith is strong enough, you'll be fearless. Then you'll obtain the god's power and be unrivaled. If you're afraid of dying, it's a blasphemy to the corrupt god. The god's displeasure will end your life, said the elder sternly. Following that, 2 disciples immediately walked out. At the same time, they roared and began a fierce battle. They fought with their full strength. Each of their attacks vicious. A true battle to the death. In just 10 moves, one of them killed the other, ending the battle. The thing that made Lang Yueyang feel extremely fortunate about was that she wasn't in the same section as Jiyu Nianru. After her experience from last time, she had gained a slight understanding of the essence of battle. Her opponent was easily killed. As for Jiyu Nianru, she defeated her opponent in just 3 moves. Her opponent was dejected and killed by the elder. The fate of losers was death. Over 500 experts were cut down to half. In their original group of 10 people, other than Lang Yueyang and Jiyu Nianru, the rest had all died during this competition. Ling Yueyang and Jiyu Nianru were dejected. But the elder didn't give them much time to feel sorrow. They were soon sent to a small town to slaughter the heathens there. They were heathens that had disrespected their god. When she watched those countless disciples slaughtering those unarmed commoners, Lang Yueyang couldn't help softly asking Jiyu Nianru, "Big sister, why do we live?" Jiyu Nianru looked at her and smiled slightly. "We live for ourselves. As for them, perhaps it's to vent their feelings. They feel much hatred inside. Perhaps doing this can make them feel a bit better." Jiyu Nianru and Lang Yueyang didn't participate in the slaughter. They just watched the other corrupt disciples roar and slaughter the commoners. They held each other as they watched on. Once the heathens were slaughtered, they disbanded and returned to their sect to cultivate. But the corrupt path's cultivation was extremely cruel. The elimination competitions continued. They happened periodically. Sometimes it would be half a year between them. Sometimes there would be 2 in 1 month. Time passed bit by bit. The struggle between them only grew more and more intense. And the people were growing more and more vicious. This year, Lang Yueyang was 13 years old and already a bone-forging expert. Her beauty was also gradually showing itself. Quite a few disciples secretly set their intentions on her. But they only dared to think of that. That was because they were afraid of a certain person. Jiyu Nianru. Jiyu Nianru's name seemed to be amicable one. But she would hunt down whoever dared to provoke Lang Yueyang to the ends of the earth. But once they reached the bone-forging realm, everyone's cultivation slowed down. The bone-forging realm was extremely important. It was a realm created through amassing resources. In this realm, the resources had to be concentrated on the absolute geniuses. Just now, Lang Yueyang had killed her final opponent. But she didn't feel the slightest bit of excitement. Instead, her expression was exceedingly grave. Within her original group of over 500 people, the only ones left were her and Jiyu Nianru. Furthermore, according to the rules, the two would now have to fight. In other words, only one of them would be able to live. It was an extremely cruel reality. It was just like the past. Once the two had won, they returned behind the mountains to amuse themselves. Jiyu Nianru had also grown into a beautiful woman. She was like a lotus flower blooming just out of the surface. And anyone who looked at her would feel a good feeling. When she smiled, those deep dimples were exceptionally enchanting. "Big sister, tomorrow we'll have to." Lang Yueyang's voice was a bit hoarse. "Will you kill me?" Jiyu Nianru softly brushed Lang Yueyang's hair. A tender expression on her face.